I walked into the resort, feeling the warm breeze from the ocean as the palm trees swayed gently overhead. The sun, golden and relentless, reflected off the pool's blue surface, casting shimmering ripples across the faces of everyone lounging nearby. It should have felt perfect. The air smelled of sunscreen and salty seawater, an idyllic picture I'd seen countless times in photos and movies. A family gathering at a beach resort. What more could anyone want? But for me, it felt like stepping into a carefully constructed illusion. I wasn't meant to be here. I wasn't really a part of it. I was just the one who made sure everyone else's lives stayed on track. The one who helped organize, coordinated details, and made sure nothing fell through the cracks. Yet no one ever really saw me for what I was. Always in the background, invisible, holding it all together without a single thank you. It stung more than I cared to admit. I stood on the edge of the pool, taking in the scene. My parents, my brother, his girlfriend, everyone seemed so happy, laughing, chatting, enjoying the perfect day. But I felt alone. I'd always felt alone, even when surrounded by people who were supposed to be my family. "Verity, over here!" My brother's voice broke through my thoughts. I forced a smile, waving at him and walking toward the group. But it wasn't the kind of smile that reached my eyes. No, it was one I wore like a mask, so perfectly crafted that no one could tell how much it hurt. I sat down beside him, my parents on the other side. I couldn't help but notice how easily they all conversed with each other, as though they hadn't been months without seeing me. As though I was the one who didn't matter. And then I heard it. I wasn't meant to hear it, of course, but I did. "We wish your brother was our only child," my mother said casually, her words slipping out while she was distracted, chatting with my father. The comment wasn't directed at me. They didn't think I could hear them, but it was there, hanging in the air between us like a sharp, cruel blade. It wasn't the first time I'd been made to feel small in my own family, but hearing those words, spoken with such nonchalance, hit me harder than I'd anticipated. I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging into the palms of my hands as I tried to hold back the flood of emotions that threatened to drown me. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but I stayed silent. What good would it do? I had spent my entire life learning to stay silent, to never rock the boat, to keep the peace. It wasn't like I could confront them now. Instead, I forced a smile, taking a deep breath as I turned to face my brother, who was talking animatedly about his latest achievements. I listened, nodding, pretending to care, but inside, I was seething. I had always been in his shadow, always second. I couldn't help but reflect on the years of neglect I had endured, the subtle and not so subtle ways I had been pushed aside in favor of him. I was the one who had to hold everything together while he played the role of the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. And yet, he was the one who was always praised. I could feel the familiar knot in my stomach tighten. I wanted to shout at them, to tell them how it felt to be the invisible one, but there was no point. They'd never understand. They'd never see me for who I was, only for what I did for them. As I looked around at the happy faces of my family, I realized something. The pain I felt in moments like this wasn't new. It had been there for years, simmering just beneath the surface, always waiting to resurface in the form of casual comments or dismissive gestures. I tried to push the thoughts aside, but they lingered, gnawing at the edges of my mind. How much longer could I stand being the one who always did everything for everyone and received nothing in return? I stood up abruptly, needing some space to breathe, to think. My parents didn't even notice. They were too busy with my brother, his girlfriend, their life. It was easy to be forgotten when you were never really seen to begin with. I walked away from the group, finding solace in the quiet of the beach, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore filling my ears. The pain was still there, but it felt a little less suffocating with each step I took away from them. I had always been the silent one, the one who put everyone else first. But deep down, I was tired of it. I was tired of being invisible, of being the one who always had to play the role of the caretaker, the fixer. The confrontation had been building inside me for years, and now I could feel it, the faint stirrings of something stronger than the fear that usually held me back. I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do with that anger, that growing sense of self-worth, but I knew I couldn't stay silent much longer. Not this time. The hours after the gathering were the hardest. I didn't want to be around anyone. I needed space to think, to breathe without the weight of their indifference pressing down on me. The moment I had overheard that comment, "We wish your brother was our only child," it lingered in my mind like a wound that wouldn't heal. My body felt heavy, like I was carrying something I couldn't put down. Every step I took felt like I was wading through thick, suffocating air. I sat alone in my room, the blinds pulled shut, the silence almost unbearable. I stared at my phone screen, scrolling aimlessly, trying to distract myself. But it didn't work. The hurt kept creeping in. My parents had always favored him. I had known that for years, but to hear it spoken out loud like it didn't even matter, it hit differently this time. For years, I had tried to stay silent, to play the role of the good daughter, the peacekeeper. The one who kept the family together, despite the fact that no one ever really noticed what I did. I never asked for recognition, but it would have been nice to be acknowledged for once. But instead, I always got the leftovers, the leftover love, the leftover attention. I couldn't keep doing this. I had to confront them. I had to say something, even if it meant destroying the illusion of the perfect family they tried to present. The decision felt like a weight lifting off my chest, even though I knew it would come with consequences. I had spent so many years being the quiet one, the one who would swallow every slight, every hurt, and carry it like a burden. But I wasn't doing that anymore. I was done being the silent scapegoat. I thought back to my childhood. The first time I truly felt dismissed. I was maybe 10. My brother's achievements were always celebrated, always praised. The soccer trophies, the academic awards. And then there was me, trying to get my parents' attention with my own accomplishments, but they were always too busy with him. That was when I first realized that I didn't matter to them. The memory hit me harder than I expected. It was like opening a door to a room I had locked away a long time ago. I could still hear my mother's voice, her praise for him, as if I wasn't even in the room. My hands clenched into fists, the anger slowly building. I needed to do this. I needed to stand up for myself. I stood up from my bed, pacing the small room. My thoughts were racing. What would I even say? How would I even begin to make them see what they had done? But I knew this wasn't going to be easy. It was never going to be easy. I gathered my courage and walked out of the room. I found my brother by the pool, talking to his girlfriend. He looked so at ease, so comfortable. I approached him slowly, trying to steady my nerves. "Hey, can we talk for a minute?" I asked, my voice sounding far more steady than I felt. He raised an eyebrow, but nodded, stepping away from his conversation with her. I could see the curiosity in his eyes, but also the hesitation. He didn't know what was coming. I didn't even know what was coming. We sat on the edge of the pool, the water shimmering in the late afternoon sun. The tension between us was palpable. I could feel the words in my throat, but they wouldn't come out. How do you confront someone who has never acknowledged your pain? "I overheard what Mom said," I started, my voice quiet but firm. "And I need to know something." He looked at me, his face unreadable. "Why?" I continued, feeling the frustration welling up inside me. "Why is he always the golden child? Why do you guys never see me?" His expression shifted, and before he could respond, I saw the familiar defense mechanism kick in. "Come on, Verity, you're just being emotional," he said, rolling his eyes. "Mom and Dad love you just as much." "No, they don't," I snapped, unable to hold it back any longer. "They've never loved me the way they love you. You know it, I know it, and they know it too. You've always been the one who got everything." He looked away, avoiding my gaze. "This is ridiculous. Why are you making this a bigger deal than it is? Mom and Dad have done everything for us." I felt a lump form in my throat. He was shutting me down, just like always. He wasn't going to acknowledge what had happened. He wasn't going to see me. "So that's it?" I asked, bitterness creeping into my voice. "You're just going to dismiss everything I'm saying? Again?" He shrugged. "I don't know what you want me to say, Verity." I stood up abruptly, feeling the heat in my chest rise. I couldn't do this anymore. He wasn't going to see me. He wasn't going to hear me. I walked away, trying to control the tears threatening to spill. It hurt. It always hurt. But it was nothing new. I had always been alone in this. Later that evening, I found my parents in the living room, sitting quietly as if nothing had happened. I gathered all the strength I had and walked in. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I needed them to hear me. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice shaking only slightly. "We need to talk." They looked at me, a mix of surprise and indifference in their eyes. "I've been holding this in for so long," I continued, "but I can't do it anymore. All these years, I've been invisible to you. All of you. Every single one of you." My mother glanced at my father, a look passing between them. "Verity, you're being too sensitive," she said, her tone dismissive. "We've done everything we can for you." "Everything?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What about me? What about what I needed? You've never seen me." "Never? We've given you a good life, haven't we?" my father said, his voice cold. "What more do you want from us?" I stared at them, the weight of their indifference crashing down on me. I had hoped for something different, something more, but it was just another reminder I wasn't enough for them. I left the room, my heart sinking in my chest. But then, just as I thought I couldn't take any more, the phone rang. It was a distant relative, someone who had always supported me, even when my own family hadn't. "Verity, I've heard what's been going on," she said softly. "And I want you to know, you're not alone. You have every right to feel the way you do. You're strong. Don't let them make you feel small anymore." Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that not everyone saw me as invisible. I wasn't alone. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. I wasn't going to let this family destroy me. I was going to fight for myself, for my self-worth. And then, as I hung up the phone, I made a decision. I would no longer be the silent one. I would no longer sit back and let them walk all over me. I would take action. I had been pacing back and forth in my living room all morning, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on me. The phone call with my lawyer had left me shaken, but it also gave me the clarity I needed. I couldn't keep letting my family trample on my dignity. I had to take action, no matter the cost. I grabbed my coat and keys, heading straight for the lawyer's office. The streets outside seemed to blur as I drove, my thoughts consumed by the legal battle ahead. I wasn't naive. I knew it would be a long, exhausting fight, but for the first time in years, I felt like I had control over something, anything. When I arrived, the lawyer greeted me with a stern but understanding look. He led me to a small conference room and sat me down. His expression grew serious as he began explaining the extent of the case. "The family's legal team is not going to make this easy for you," he said, looking at the paperwork in front of him. "You're looking at a drawn-out battle. They'll likely try to drag this out in court, and with the assets at stake, they'll do everything to protect their interests." His words hit me like a slap in the face. This wasn't just a fight for my dignity anymore, it was a fight for something bigger. The family's wealth, their reputation, everything was tied up in this. My family wouldn't just sit back and let me walk away without a fight. But I wasn't backing down. I felt a mix of fear and resolve rising in me as I nodded in acknowledgement. I couldn't turn back now. "Do whatever it takes," I said, my voice quieter than I intended, but firm nonetheless. "I'm not letting them control me anymore." The lawyer gave me a reassuring smile, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He knew this wasn't going to be an easy ride. The following days passed in a blur. I tried to prepare myself for what was coming, but nothing could fully prepare me for the reaction from my family. When the legal documents arrived, it was like opening Pandora's box. They hadn't expected this. I could see it in their faces. The shock, the confusion. I had been the quiet one, the one who always stayed in the background, so for me to challenge them like this was a total shock to the system. It didn't take long for my parents to call an emergency family meeting. I wasn't surprised. They were trying to contain the damage, but I was ready for it. When we all gathered at the family home, my father spoke first, his voice calm but with a certain edge. "Verity," he began, "what exactly do you think you're doing? You're threatening the family's reputation. You know the consequences of actions like this." I sat there watching him, trying to steady my breath. The anger in me was building, but I didn't want to lose control. Not yet. "We're a family," my mother added, her voice trembling slightly. "You're overreacting, Verity. This will tear everything apart." "What good will come of this?" I looked from one face to another, seeing the concern they were showing, but it wasn't genuine. It wasn't the concern of parents who loved their child. It was the concern of people who were desperate to maintain their perfect image, the image they'd been projecting for years. And then, just as I'd feared, my brother chimed in. "This is stupid," he said, crossing his arms. "Why are you doing this to all of us? You're being emotional. This isn't how we handle things." His words stung, but they didn't surprise me. He'd always been the golden child, the one who got all the praise and attention. It was clear he didn't understand, and probably never would. "You're defending them?" I couldn't help but ask, my voice thick with disbelief. "You've never seen what they've done to me. All of you have been blind to it. I'm just a shadow to you." My brother didn't respond, his gaze dropping to the floor as if he couldn't bear to hear what I was saying. The emotional weight of the conversation crushed me. I couldn't keep doing this, keeping it all inside, pretending I didn't matter. But even as I spoke my truth, I felt the familiar pang of doubt creeping in. Was I being too harsh? Was I just overreacting, like they always said? I stood up, fighting to hold back the tears. I can't keep playing this role anymore. I'm done being the one who sacrifices everything for the sake of everyone else. I've had enough. There was a long, uncomfortable silence. My parents' faces were hard to read. They didn't know what to say, and that was enough. I wasn't expecting an apology or even understanding, but at least they heard me. Later that night, I found myself sitting alone in my room, replaying everything in my head. I'd said my piece, but I couldn't shake the feeling of doubt. Had I made the right choice? What would happen next? The weight of the decisions ahead was starting to sink in. But then, just as I was about to give in to the overwhelming feeling of uncertainty, my phone rang. It was a call I wasn't expecting, one from Aunt Karen. She had always been a voice of reason in the family, someone who actually saw me for who I was. "Verity, I just wanted to check in on you," she said softly. "I know things are tough right now, but I want you to know that you're doing the right thing. You have every right to take control of your life. Don't let them guilt-trip you into staying quiet anymore. You deserve more than that." Her words were like a lifeline. I needed to hear them, needed to be reminded that I wasn't crazy for standing up for myself. As the call ended, I felt a quiet sense of strength settle over me. I wasn't alone in this. I had people who supported me. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that I didn't need my family's approval. I had to do this for me. The next day, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't going to let their guilt and manipulation hold me back any longer. I had a plan, and I was going to see it through. I called my lawyer again, determined to take the next step. I couldn't just be passive anymore. I had to fight for what was mine. But as I hung up the phone, I felt a twinge of unease. What if they were already ahead of me? Later that afternoon, I was sitting at home when the phone rang again. This time it was my lawyer with urgent news. "They've filed a countersuit," he said, his voice tight with concern. "Your family has escalated things. They're taking legal action against you now." I felt my blood run cold. It wasn't just a fight for my dignity anymore. It was a fight for my freedom. I stared at the wall, my thoughts swirling. This was just getting started. I was sitting at the kitchen table when the phone rang, my lawyer's name flashing on the screen. I didn't want to answer, but I had no choice. I knew that whatever news he had would either make or break me. "Verity, they've filed a countersuit," he said, his voice steady but laced with concern. "They're claiming defamation and financial misconduct. This is worse than I anticipated." I felt my stomach drop. The breath I was holding escaped in a rush. I'd expected my family to fight back, but they were going to smear my name. They were going to twist everything I'd said and done and turn it into something ugly. "They're playing dirty, Verity," my lawyer continued. "This is a real attack on your reputation. We're looking at a long battle, and it won't be easy." The gravity of it all settled in. I wasn't just fighting for my rights anymore. I was fighting for my future, for everything I'd worked for everything I was. It felt like the world was closing in on me. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the kitchen counter. This wasn't just about inheritance or money. This was about a family who had always made me feel small, insignificant, unworthy of love or respect. They didn't want me to fight back. They wanted me to cower, to be silent, but I couldn't anymore. I wouldn't let them win. Later that night, I gathered the strength to confront my family. I couldn't keep running away from this. I needed answers. Sitting around the dinner table, I looked at each of them. My parents were there, looking unnervingly calm, as though everything was fine. My brother, on the other hand, had an edge to his posture, arms crossed, jaw tight. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating even. "I'm not backing down," I said, my voice steady. "You've crossed a line." My mother tilted her head, feigning confusion. "What do you mean by that, Verity? We're family." "And what exactly does that mean when you do nothing but use me?" I shot back. "You've made me feel like I don't matter. I've been invisible to you my whole life." My brother scoffed. "This again? You're being overly emotional. You need to get over it." His words stung more than I cared to admit. He had always been the golden child, the one who got the praise, the recognition. I had spent my life in the background, doing everything I could to make things work. And yet, here I was, being dismissed as just another dramatic outburst. "You have no idea what it's like to be ignored, to be invisible," I said, my voice rising. "You're so wrapped up in your perfect little world that you can't see what's right in front of you." My father, as usual, stayed silent, but his gaze, cold and indifferent, spoke volumes. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about family. This was about power and control. The conversation went nowhere. My parents tried to guilt-trip me, reminding me of everything they'd done for me, the sacrifices they'd made. But it was hollow, empty. The words felt like daggers, sharp and piercing. I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the floor. "You know what? I'm done," I muttered, unable to contain the frustration bubbling inside me. "I can't keep doing this. I'm not going to let you treat me like this anymore." I walked out of the room, the heavy silence of the house hanging in the air behind me. As I sat in my room, the weight of everything hit me. I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, but I couldn't afford to break down. Not now, not when the stakes were so high. I grabbed my phone and called the one person I knew would understand. It was Aunt Karen, my rock, the one person in this family who had never let me down. "Verity," she said when she answered, her voice soft and reassuring. "You're doing the right thing. Don't let them win. You've got to fight for yourself." Her words grounded me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. My feelings were valid. "I'm just so tired," I said, my voice breaking for a second. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." "You can," she replied firmly. "You've already come this far. Don't stop now." The conversation ended, and I was left with a newfound sense of clarity. I couldn't back down now. I had to keep going, for me. The next day, I found myself sitting in my lawyer's office again, reviewing the evidence. I was more determined than ever to make them see me for who I truly was, not the quiet, invisible daughter, but someone who deserved respect, someone who had a right to be heard. "We're ready to take this to the next level," I told my lawyer, looking at the pile of documents on the desk. "I'm not playing their game anymore." He nodded. "You're right. We have the evidence. Let's use it." I felt a rush of adrenaline as I sat there, fully aware of the weight of the decisions I was making. I was no longer the victim in this story. I was the one who was in control now. And nothing would stop me from fighting for what I deserved. Later that day, I received a call from my lawyer. "Verity, we found a crack in their countersuit. There's a loophole, a weakness we can exploit." My heart raced. This was the break I needed. I gathered all the documents and met with my lawyer again, ready to turn the tables on my family. It was a battle of wits now, and I wasn't going to let them win. But as we prepared to move forward, I received a new message, a simple letter from my lawyer. The family had filed a countersuit of their own. I stared at the letter, my fingers trembling. This battle was only beginning, and it was about to get much harder. I sat alone in my apartment, the silence deafening as I stared at the phone in my hand. The call I'd just received had shaken me to my core. It was from one of my few remaining allies, a cousin who had heard whispers about what was really happening behind the scenes. She told me she had evidence, hard proof, that could destroy my family's carefully curated image. But it came with a catch. Using it would mean severing the last fragile thread of connection I had with my parents. The weight of the decision settled on me like a ton of bricks. Exposing them could be the end of any chance I had left at salvaging a relationship with my family. But keeping quiet meant continuing to be their pawn, their scapegoat. The cost of silence had grown too high. I placed the phone down, pacing the room, the floor creaking beneath me. I couldn't make this decision alone. But the thought of the years of hurt, the years of being made invisible, drowned out any empathy I might have once had for them. I ran my fingers through my hair and spoke aloud, as if trying to convince myself. It's not just about winning the case. It's about me. About who I am and what I deserve. But even as I said those words, doubts gnawed at me. What if the cost of this fight was too high? What if I lost everything? The phone buzzed again, pulling me from my thoughts. My heart skipped when I saw the name on the screen. My mother. "Verity, we need to talk," she said, her voice cool, almost indifferent. "We're having a family meeting tonight. It's time you reconsider this whole thing." I couldn't bring myself to speak for a moment. I knew what she wanted, what they all wanted. They wanted me to back down, to fall in line, but I couldn't. I wasn't that person anymore. I hung up the phone, not bothering to say goodbye. Instead, I stared out the window, wondering just how much longer I could keep up this charade. It had been a lifetime of swallowing their lies, of pretending that everything was fine. When I walked into that family meeting, I was ready. I had decided. No more compromises, no more pretending. The air in the room was thick with tension. My father was seated in his usual spot, eyes fixed on the papers in front of him. My mother's gaze, ever calculating, lingered on me, waiting for me to break. "I've made my decision," I began, my voice steady, though my heart raced. "I'm not backing down. The lawsuit stays. You can't intimidate me out of it." A brief silence followed. My brother shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding eye contact, while my parents exchanged a quick look. Then my mother spoke, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You're making a huge mistake, Verity. Do you know what this is going to do to the family?" She paused, almost as if waiting for me to apologize. "This isn't just about money. It's about family." "No," I snapped, surprising myself with the sharpness in my tone. "It's about respect, something you and Dad have never given me." My father, still the picture of calm, leaned back in his chair. "You don't understand the consequences, Verity. You're being selfish." "Selfish?" The word hung in the air like smoke. "You've never cared about what I need, what I feel. I've been invisible for too long." As the words spilled out, I realized just how long I had been suppressing everything. I had spent so many years being the good daughter, the quiet one, the one who kept her head down, always doing what was expected of me. But not anymore. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me again. "Look, we can't go back to what it was," I said, voice shaking but firm. "I'm not asking for your approval. I'm standing up for myself finally." The conversation didn't go the way I had hoped. It didn't go the way I thought it would. My brother, who had been so distant in the past, suddenly became the one to speak up. He tried to guilt-trip me, saying that family was supposed to stick together, but it wasn't family. Not anymore. This was manipulation, plain and simple. "Are you really going to let a few bad decisions tear this family apart?" he asked, his tone biting. "You're making a mess of everything." I felt a cold lump in my throat, the betrayal seeping in. This wasn't just about money or inheritance. This was about them trying to control me, trying to make me feel small again. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't going to back down. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you sided with them," I said quietly, my words cutting through the tension. "I'm done." With that, I turned and walked out of the room. For the first time in my life, I didn't care what they thought. I didn't care what they said. I had made my decision. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I thought about everything that had led up to this moment. The hurt, the rejection, the years of silence. It had all been building up to this. But there was still something gnawing at me. What if I was making a mistake? The phone rang again. It was my best friend, Anna. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft and familiar. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. "I'm fighting for myself, but what if it's not worth it?" "You've been fighting for yourself your whole life," Anna said. "And look where it's gotten you. You can't keep living for them. You deserve better, Verity. Don't let them keep making you feel like you don't." Her words hit me like a wave crashing over me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the problem. They were, and it was time I stopped trying to fix something that could never be fixed. "I'm done," I said, the words feeling stronger now. "I'm doing this for me, and I'm not looking back." The next day, I sat down with my lawyer to finalize the next steps. The documents were ready, the evidence in place. I was ready to fight, no matter what it took. Just as we were about to wrap up, my lawyer looked at me, his face serious. "I've got some bad news," he said. "Your family's legal team has found an unexpected ally. This just got a whole lot more complicated." I leaned back in my chair, my heart sinking. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I hadn't expected this. Still, I wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. The call came the next day. The family lawyer had reached out with an offer. A settlement. They wanted to buy my silence. "Think about it, Verity," the lawyer said, his voice smooth. "You can walk away from all this. We'll make sure you're taken care of." I almost laughed at the audacity of it. My family had never once cared about me. They wanted to silence me, bury the truth, and continue their charade. "I'm not taking your money," I said firmly, "and I'm not walking away. Not this time." As the court date loomed closer, I knew the battle was far from over, but I was ready for whatever came next. I had made my choice, and now nothing would stop me. The call came in the early afternoon. I had barely settled into my routine when my lawyer's number flashed on the screen. I didn't expect the urgency in his voice. "Verity, we've got a problem," he said, his words clipped. "There's been a leak." My mind went blank for a moment, and I had to steady myself. "A leak? What do you mean?" "It's worse than we thought," he continued. "Someone close to your family sent sensitive documents to the opposing side. They've got everything we've been working on." I felt the floor shift beneath me. Betrayal. That was the only word that echoed in my head. My family had already hurt me enough, but this? Someone had sold me out. Someone I had trusted. "Who?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Who would do this?" "I don't know yet," he replied, but I could hear the tension in his voice. "But it's already in their hands, and we're going to have to play damage control." I hung up the phone, my fingers numb. I knew the stakes were high, but this was a game I wasn't sure I could win, not when they were all against me. I stared at the wall, trying to figure out my next move, my thoughts in a haze. I had trusted them all. At least, I had tried to believe that someone in that family cared enough to do the right thing. But now, I was alone. I didn't waste time. I went straight to my lawyer's office, determined to understand how this leak had happened and what it meant for my case. My heart hammered in my chest as I entered his office, the door closing behind me with a soft click. His face was grim as I sat across from him. The documents spread out before him were a reminder that everything was about to get harder. "It's bad, Verity," he said, his eyes flickering to the pile of papers. "The leak has completely shifted the odds. They've got everything they need to destroy your credibility. We can still fight, but it's going to take everything we have." My stomach churned. Betrayal, like a sharp knife, twisted deeper into me. Who had done this? Was it someone in the family? The pieces didn't fit, but then again, none of this had ever made sense. My head spun with possibilities, but no matter how hard I tried, the truth seemed to evade me. "What happens now?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. "We're going to need to rework our strategy," he said, leaning back in his chair. You need to be prepared for a rough ride." The next day, I found myself standing in the living room of my family's home, the air thick with tension. My brother was sitting across from me, his expression hardened. His usual indifference had morphed into something far darker. He was no longer the oblivious bystander. Now he was a part of this war. "You've made a huge mistake," he said, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "This whole thing is going to ruin us, Verity. You're playing with fire." "Maybe it's time we all get burned," I shot back, my anger flaring. "I'm tired of being the one who has to clean up everyone's mess." My brother's eyes narrowed. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about you. This is about the family. Our name. Everything we've built." The words felt like a slap, but they didn't sting. Not anymore. The family I had once tried to protect, the family I had desperately tried to please, wasn't worth fighting for anymore. All they cared about was preserving their image, their wealth, their reputation, and in the process, they had crushed me. "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice unwavering. "But you don't get it either. This isn't about you, and it never was. It's about me taking control of my life." The conversation ended there. With my brother retreating into silence as always, I could see the calculation in his eyes, but it didn't faze me. He was trying to manipulate me, trying to play the family card, but I wasn't backing down. Not this time. The emotional toll of it all hit me later that night. Alone in my apartment, I sat on the couch, staring at the walls. The weight of everything I'd been through, everything I was about to face, pressed on me. Was this really the right thing to do? I wasn't sure. But I couldn't turn back now. Just then, my phone rang. It was Anna. "Hey," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "It's getting really messy." "I know," Anna replied, her voice calm but filled with understanding. "I saw the news. But you've got this, Verity. You've been strong for so long. You can't stop now." Her words hit me like a wave. I had forgotten how much support I had outside of all this chaos. The family, the betrayal, it was suffocating. But Anna, she had always been my anchor. She reminded me of who I was before all of this, before the manipulation, before the lies. "I can't stop," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "I won't." The next morning, I was back at my lawyer's office, preparing for what was to come. The documents were in front of me, the evidence I had painstakingly gathered over the weeks. The stakes were higher than ever before. The family had found an ally, and I had to face the truth of the fight that was unfolding in front of me. "This is bigger than I thought," I said, shaking my head. "What's next?" "We go harder," my lawyer said, eyes sharp. "We have to push back. You're going to have to be ready for everything. Your family will stop at nothing." I nodded, my resolve hardening. I knew this battle wasn't just about me anymore. It was about proving that I wouldn't let them win, that I wouldn't be silenced anymore. I left the office, feeling more certain than ever. But the next call came quickly. The family lawyer had reached out with an offer, an ultimatum. They wanted me to drop everything. They wanted me to keep quiet. The settlement was real. But so was my anger. "No," I said firmly. "I won't back down." As the days passed and the court date loomed closer, I knew there was no turning back. I had made my decision, and now I had to live with it. But then came the unexpected. An anonymous tip. A piece of evidence, more than I had hoped for, that could change everything. I stared at the message on my phone, feeling a chill run down my spine. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. I walked through the familiar threshold of the house, the same house that had witnessed years of my silent suffering. The walls seemed to breathe with memories, memories I was now desperate to shed. The house felt like a prison. My parents' voices, their careless laughter, all felt suffocating as I entered the living room. They had no idea how close I was to breaking, how close I was to leaving them behind for good. I sat down at the table, my hands clenched tightly. I could feel the tension in my chest, an unbearable pressure that had been building for years. I could hear my father in the next room, his voice carried over from a conversation I wasn't a part of, as usual. My brother's presence only added to the weight pressing on me. Everything was the same, but I was not. For years, I had been invisible to them, an afterthought, always second to my brother, always the one who cleaned up the messes they left behind. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was done being quiet. Done being the one who hid in the shadows. It was time to take a stand, and I knew the moment had arrived. I turned to face them, my family, the people who should have loved me unconditionally. "I've had enough," I said, my voice steady but cutting through the air. "You've all made me feel like I was nothing, that I didn't matter. Well, I'm not going to take it anymore." My father looked at me, his eyes narrowing in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "You've hurt me for years," I continued, my voice rising. "You've ignored me, belittled me, made me feel like I was the one who was wrong for needing your love. And now I'm supposed to just sit back and let you destroy everything I've fought for?" My brother shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his usual smugness replaced with something else, fear maybe, or guilt. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he said, his voice defensive. "This is just the way things are." "You've always been too sensitive." "Sensitive?" I scoffed. "No, this isn't about sensitivity. This is about manipulation. This is about how you and Mom have treated me like I don't even exist." My brother shifted again, his face flushing with anger. "You're making us look bad, don't you see that?" "See what? That I'm finally standing up for myself? That's what you're worried about, not the years of pain you've caused me?" My voice was shaking now, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. I could see my father's face twist into something between disappointment and anger. "We did the best we could for you. You should be grateful, Verity." "Grateful?" I laughed bitterly. "Grateful for what? For being ignored? For being the quiet one who was always supposed to be there when you needed her, but never once got the same in return?" They were silent, and in that silence, I realized something. I had spent so many years trying to make them see me, to make them care. But the truth was, they never would. They were too far gone in their own world of perfection, too consumed by their egos to care about the daughter they had neglected. "You want to know what's been the hardest part of all this?" I continued, my voice raw. "It's not the lies. It's not the betrayal. It's the fact that I spent so much time thinking I wasn't good enough for you. I'm done with that. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done hiding who I am just to make you happy." My brother, now visibly furious, shot to his feet. "You think you can just tear this family apart? You're destroying everything we've worked for, everything we've built." I stood up, facing him. "No, you're the one destroying it. All of you are. But not anymore. I'm not going to let you manipulate me any longer." I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, the tension thick as I spoke the words that had been waiting to be said for so long. "You never cared about me. You cared about your perfect image, your perfect little world, and I was just a footnote in it. But I'm not playing that game anymore. I'm done." I could see their shock, their disbelief, but it no longer mattered. I had said it. I had taken control. I turned to leave, the door of the house now an open path to freedom. But before I could fully walk out, something stopped me. Something in the pit of my stomach told me there was one last thing I had to do. The stakes were higher than ever. The fight wasn't over, and I couldn't walk away until I had exposed the truth completely. I paused at the door, turning back one last time to face them. "You think this is the end? You think I'm just going to walk away and forget everything you've done to me?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger but filled with determination. "No, this is just the beginning." As I closed the door behind me, I could feel the weight of my decision. But something deeper inside me told me that no matter how hard the next step would be, I was ready. I had to be. I stood in front of the mirror, taking one last look at myself before facing the storm I had been preparing for. The reflection staring back at me was no longer the scared, quiet daughter who always bent to their will. This woman was different, stronger, more determined. The years of hurt, frustration, and silence had finally pushed me to this point. Today, I wasn't going to let them bury me under their expectations and lies any longer. The air in the house felt heavy, thick with unresolved tension. I could almost hear the echo of the past, the voices of my parents and brother, each one always too focused on their own lives to see me, to hear me. But that was over. Today, I would be heard. I walked into the family living room, my heart pounding with the weight of what I was about to do. There was no turning back now. The moment I entered the room, I could feel their eyes on me, sizing me up. My father was reading the newspaper, seemingly uninterested, but his posture was tense. My mother was busy fixing her hair in the mirror, pretending to be absorbed in herself. And my brother? He sat on the couch, looking at his phone, acting as if nothing had changed. He hadn't yet realized that everything was about to change. I cleared my throat, and when they all looked up, I didn't flinch. "I'm done pretending," I said, my voice steady but laced with anger. "I've spent my whole life being invisible to all of you. I've been the one to clean up your messes, to support you in silence, and I've never once been given the respect or the love I deserved." My father's eyes flickered, and my mother's lips tightened. My brother set his phone down, his expression changing from casual to defensive. "You've made me feel like I was never enough," I continued, "like I didn't fit into your perfect little family. But I'm done with that. I'm not asking for your approval anymore. I'm demanding acknowledgement for who I am." My father scoffed, shaking his head. "You've always been dramatic, Verity. This is just a phase." My mother, with her usual cold indifference, added, "We gave you everything. You should be grateful for what you had." The words stung, but I didn't let them break me. Instead, I let the truth of my words sink in. Grateful? For what? For a lifetime of neglect? For always being second place to my brother? Do you even see me? Or am I just a footnote in your perfect story? My brother, finally sitting up straight, glared at me. "You're ruining everything. Don't you care about the family? About the legacy we've built?" His voice was sharp, but I saw the fear beneath it. He knew I was no longer the quiet girl who would bend to him. "This family is a lie," I snapped, "and I'm done living in it." The words echoed in the room, and for a brief moment, everything was silent. My father's face twisted in anger, his nostrils flaring as if he was about to unleash a tirade. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd spent too many years cowering, waiting for them to notice me. I wasn't waiting anymore. I stepped closer, the power I'd taken back surging through me. "You've always used me. You've always treated me like I wasn't enough. But I've had enough. It's time for you to face the consequences of what you've done to me." My brother stood up, his face turning red with rage. "You don't understand. You're destroying this family. Everything we've worked for, everything we've built. It's all falling apart because of you." "Maybe it should fall apart," I said, my voice firm. "Maybe this family needs to crumble so we can all stop pretending. You think you're the golden child, but you've been playing your own part in this farce. You're no better than them." His eyes widened in shock, and for a brief second, I saw him falter. But then, his defensiveness returned, and he tried to shift the blame back onto me. "You're just too sensitive. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I laughed bitterly. "No, this is me finally reacting. This is me finally seeing the truth. I'm done." Just as I thought I had broken through, my brother's face shifted, his expression darkening. "You don't know everything, Verity. You don't know what we've had to do to keep this family together. You've been living in a dream world. And now, you're going to pay the price." I froze. There was something in his voice, a threat, a hidden truth. "What do you mean?" He smiled coldly, and in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my family came crashing down. "There are things you don't know, secrets I've kept from you for your own good." I didn't want to hear it. But the seeds of doubt had been planted, and I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. "Don't you dare try to manipulate me anymore," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done with your lies, done with all of it." I turned toward the door, my heart racing but my resolve stronger than ever. But as I reached for the doorknob, I heard my mother's voice again, cutting through the air. "You'll regret this, Verity," she said, her voice icy. "You'll never be welcome here again." I paused for a moment, my hand on the door. "I've already made peace with that," I replied, turning back to face them one last time. "You can't hurt me anymore." With that, I stepped out of the house, the door slamming shut behind me. I knew I was walking away from a family that never truly saw me, but for the first time in my life, I felt free. I thought I was free, but there was one last thing left to do. The weight of everything that had happened over the past few months still hung heavy on my chest. As I sat alone in my apartment, the silence was deafening, but it was the kind of silence I'd grown accustomed to. It wasn't the silence of being ignored, it was the silence of peace, of knowing that I had taken control. The emotional battle with my family was over, and now I had to find a way to move forward. My mind kept drifting back to the confrontation, the final words exchanged with my family, and the aftermath of everything. The pain of what they had done to me wasn't gone, but it had lessened. I was healing, slowly but surely. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was mine to walk, and for the first time, I felt ready to take each step on my own terms. Rebuilding my life was harder than I'd expected. I had spent so much of my life taking care of everyone else, trying to fit into their mold, that I didn't really know who I was outside of that dynamic. But every day felt like a fresh start. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. Some of them had seen through the facade of my family long ago. They didn't need any explanations. They just welcomed me back, and their presence reminded me that I was not defined by the people who had tried to break me. I started looking for new opportunities, work, passions, things that were just for me. I found joy in small things. A book I'd always wanted to read, a long walk through the city, a spontaneous trip to a new place. I had forgotten what it felt like to do something for the sheer pleasure of it. And now, I was rediscovering it all over again. I was beginning to see that I didn't need to carry the weight of my family's expectations with me anymore. I was free to create the life I deserved, not the one they had mapped out for me. And that freedom, though daunting, was exhilarating. It wasn't long before I found myself in a situation where I needed to stand up for someone else. The memory of my own struggles, the injustices I had faced, and the power I had now reclaimed made me realize that I had a responsibility to use my voice to help others. I wasn't the only one who had been silenced, and I knew that if I could stand up for myself, I could do the same for others. There was a woman at work, a colleague who had been unfairly treated by our boss. No one seemed to care, and everyone turned a blind eye. But I couldn't ignore it. I spoke out, not just for her, but for all the people who had been overlooked or mistreated. I stood up, and with that act, I realized my purpose had shifted. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about standing up for what's right, for others who needed a voice. And it felt good, better than I could have imagined. The journey wasn't without its emotional struggles, though. Even as I grew stronger, there were times when the anger and hurt from my family's actions resurfaced. I couldn't erase what had happened. The wounds they had left on me were deep, and the process of healing was slower than I had hoped. But in my heart, I knew forgiveness was something I had to work on, not for them, but for myself. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean excusing their actions. But it meant releasing the power they still held over me. It was a hard lesson to learn. I had to accept that some things could never be fixed, but I could still move on. I didn't need their approval to be at peace with myself. Then, one day, my family reached out. It wasn't the apology I had expected. It wasn't even an acknowledgement of what had happened. But they wanted to meet. They wanted to talk. I knew this moment was inevitable. They needed to see me, to feel as if they still had some control. I walked into that meeting with no expectations. This wasn't about me proving myself anymore. It wasn't about getting closure or seeking their approval. It was about showing them that I no longer needed them to define my worth. As I sat at the table, I felt no fear, just a quiet strength. My mother started, her words cold, as usual, trying to blame everything on my sensitivity, as if that could explain everything they had done. My brother, ever the manipulator, tried to twist everything around to make me feel guilty for breaking the family apart. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry either. I just spoke calmly, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking for their approval. "I've already made peace with this," I said. "I'm done. I don't need anything from you anymore. I've already healed in my own way. You can't hurt me anymore." Their silence said it all. I didn't need their approval. I wasn't their victim anymore. As I walked out of that room, I didn't feel any triumph, no sense of victory. There was a finality to it, though, a sense of peace that I had done what I needed to do, not for them, but for me. I stepped outside. The world felt different. The air smelled fresher. The path ahead wasn't clear, but it didn't matter. I had closed that chapter. I was free. But what came next? That was the real question. Standing there, I didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The rest of my journey was mine to shape. I had reclaimed my power. And now, I would decide what to do with it.